this correlation that both the euro US dollar and the stock markets are going to continue to move lower. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to put this back so everybody can see this, and we're going to go into our next pair. Now we're going to change things up. We're going to start adding a few different indicators here so everybody can see that. Now our next pair, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our next major pair, and again we're going to stick with the majors this week so there's no confusion. Now our next pair we're going to look at here is the US Swiss franc currency pair. Again, we're starting with the triple EMA crossover, very important. Our key levels of support 105.78, 106.76, 106.76, and 107.28. The 3-day exponential moving average from Vantage Point. Now this is a very good area between the 3-day and the 8-day moving averages from Vantage Point to get into buy positions. Now again, what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and see if the short, the medium, or the long-term crossover is showing anything different here to what we're trying to attempt to see is whether or not we have a different crossover. So we still crossed over to the upside on the short term. We're going to then go in, hit the medium term, hit apply. We can see we have no crossover to the downside whatsoever. So this clearly suggests that the US Swiss franc currency pair is going to move higher. Now, when we've had an extended move like this for this period of time, basically we've been in this buy signal for some time now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're just going to add another indicator to see if we're getting into overbought levels. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the predicted RSI from Vantage Point. We're going to hit apply. So this paints a slightly different picture. We can see that the triple EMA crossover is actually in heavily overbought territory. So the possibility of a retracement lower is very, very possible. So it's good that we can use these indicators to try and tell us this. Now what I'm going to do here also is I'm going to go in and add the predicted MACD, because I think it's very important also to see what it's doing, to see if it's in overbought territory. Now again, looking at this, we can see that the predicted MACD has not crossed over to the downside yet. However, it is also in heavily overbought territory. So this is something to keep in mind. This is why we use the triple EMA crossover to identify these critical areas. So, but for now, it looks to me that we're going to see further upside potential after probably a very modest pullback in the US Swiss franc, probably towards that 106.78 area. From there, we can get back into our buy positions. Now, going into our next pair here, we're going to be looking again. We're going to focus on the major pairs this week. Our next pair, US-Japan. Now, the US-Japan currency pair, highly affected by yen futures and the US dollar index. We can see here that we still don't have a buy signal from Vantage Point. 90.12 is our major resistance line, 89.85, 89.86. However, we've got a close of 89.99. So clearly this thing's under pressure. So what we're going to do here again, we're going to go in and have a look at the short and medium term crossovers to see what's happening. So hitting apply here, we can see that we do actually have a crossover to the upside on the US-Japan currency pair. So in the short term, this suggests that US-Japan is going to move slightly higher. Now we're also going to hit our medium term and see what's happening there. Now the medium term is not confirming a trend reversal here, or that we're really in the medium term even going to head much higher on the US-Japan currency pair. Now looking at the long term, I believe it's more than likely going to tell us the same story here, which of course it is. There's no crossover to the upside with the 6-day exponential moving average from Vantage Point crossing over a 15-day simple moving average. Again, that's not happening. So what this tells me with the US-Japan currency pair is likely what's going to happen is that we're going to get a slight move. In the interim, we're going to move higher, and once we've moved a little bit higher in the short term, we're then going to get a significant move lower. That is very highly possible. So now, using the US-Japan currency pair, I'm also going to illustrate this. What is influencing my decision here is I'm going to go back here and review again one of the major stock indices so everybody can see this. Now, the U.S.-Japan has predominantly had a very high correlation to the major stock markets. So I'm going to use the S&P 500 again as a benchmark, just so everybody can see the very clear correlation here. So we can see here that this crossover has taken place back here. The US-Japan has been moving higher for some period of time. Now, just about the exact same time that the S&P 500, or I should say that the Japanese, we got a sell signal from vantage point on the US-Japanese currency pair, the stock market sold off right afterwards. Now, point of interest that these points of volatility where these candlesticks are coming back up and touching the predicted moving averages from vantage point, the same thing is happening on the US-Japan currency pair. So to be clear, what we can do is we go in here, we're going to have a look, and we're going to apply the medium-term crossover from vantage point to both of these. This should help illustrate a very good point that the US-Japan is experiencing volatility, but again, it has not made that crossover, and neither has the S&P 500. So very, very high correlation here to the S&P 500 and the other major global stock indices and the US-Japan currency pair. So I hope that helps to illustrate what's happening right now with US-Japan, and our bias for now should remain lower for the US-Japan currency pair. Now, looking at the New Zealand US dollar, we're going to go in here, we're going to use our triple EMA crossover to begin the presentation on that currency pair. Very important that we always do that, again, as I've already mentioned throughout this webinar. So what we can see here is that the triple EMA crossover, there is absolutely no buy signal here from the Vantage Point software. With the triple EMA crossover, our major resistance 70.39, excuse me, 69.73, 69.69 with a close of 69.79. Now, looking at the New Zealand US dollar, what we're going to do here, again, I'm going to go in, we're going to use the correlation, but this time we're going to use the correlation to the metals. Now, with the metals, again, it's very important to look at these side by side using multiple markets from vantage point. We can see, again, I've already touched base on this. I know that you'll have to excuse me if this becomes somewhat repetitive, but again, but that is Forex. The repetitiveness of this, it's unfortunate, but it is still good to review it. So again, we can see with the New Zealand US dollar, very high correlation to the metals and the equities. We've already gone through the equities, but we can see here that until we get this reversal signal on the gold contracts, New Zealand US likely to head lower. Now, again, we're going to now go into the Australia US. Now, the